Okay, good morning and welcome everybody. This is a sort of a webcast, a podcast. We're going to sort of post it across hopefully our social channels. My name is Joe Bailey, Managing Director of a company called Generate UK. We're a full service digital marketing agency based in West Berkshire. We've been going for sort of 13 years. And we actually started our life as more, I guess, as a sort of development and SEO agency, really. And over the years, we've built really good services within the business and new skills. One of those skills is design, and we've, obviously got a design team. And I'm delighted to be to welcome Clare Sheffield, who is the founder of Is it Strong and Together? Is that how you pronounce it, Clare?
Yeah, that's right. Strong and Together.
Strong and Together, who's come and taken her time out to talk a little bit about design today, and hopefully you'll get a huge amount out of it if you're listening to this podcast or watching this webcast. So thank you for your time, Clare, today. And also Andrea Tallett, who is one of our sort of senior designers at Generate UK, who has been with the company for a little while now and has agreed to come and talk to us again about design and some of the stuff we do. We've got some questions to run through and hopefully it will sort of guide us through this session. But first of all, Clare, do you just want to talk a little bit about what you do and sort of who you are and what you do with Strong and Together?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for inviting me on here today. It's a real pleasure to come and chat to you. I started Strong and Together 11 years ago, and we primarily work with businesses that have an ambition for growth. Really, it's about working with companies to understand their business plan, their business ambition, and then we work with them to understand how great branding and design can help them achieve those ambitions, really. And that's primarily business to consumer, but also business to business. So a real variety of clients that we work with, and kind of working across identity, packaging, naming, environment, and also kind of guidelines, brand guidelines that they can then take into sort of digital applications.
So a wealth of experience. So we're delighted that you're with us today. And Andrea, what do you do at Generate UK?
Yeah, so I'm the senior designer here at Generate UK. So I work on a broad range of things, varying from marketing materials such as leaflets, flyers, brochures, to display ads, supporting our marketing team with campaigns, so display ads, as I say, and social media posts, landing pages, all the way through to projects. So we win website projects, progressive web app projects. So yeah, really get a real broad range of design tasks here at Generate, which is really good.
Yes, and I know the type of clients obviously we work with, similar to sort of Clare, they're very varied. Majority is B2B. We do look after some B2C clients and nice brands, but yeah, it's very varied, I would say. The role of a designer at Generate UK, and it sounds like it's pretty varied where you are as well, Clare, in terms of the type of work you get involved in. So I'm going to kickstart with a question. So in terms of design, I think everybody thinks of design in a different way. But and what I might ask you, Clare, about design might be different to what Andrea comes back with. So mate, should we just start there? In terms of sort of design, what do you believe design is in terms of a business? Like, so if a business comes to you, so I need a designer, what do you think they need? What do you think they need? I guess that's the question.
I guess design is really about problem solving. It's about visually problem solving. So if a company comes with a particular problem or a particular idea, so for example, we need to communicate to a new target audience, that's a problem, and it's a designer can use their toolkit of what they have in their design toolkit. So that might be creating an identity that includes logo, color palette, fonts, imagery, style, all of those things. And that's what design is. It's really about cherry picking the right things and creating the right things for a particular problem so that someone communicates something effectively about their business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Andrea, what would you say? What would you add to anything?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say, it's a very broad statement, but design's very subjective as well. And design to one company might mean one thing, and design to another company might mean another. So I feel like, as a role of designer, as you say, it's about supporting them and being that partner for them, so they could come to you with any problem, any idea, and you're able to put it into practice and work with them collaboratively to achieve a final product. As you say, whether that be visual identity, whether that be a website, there's always a process that needs to be in place to be able to reach that final goal. Especially here at Generate UK, I definitely see myself, the whole team, as a partnership with a company. So they'll come to us for our services. So we're able to support them on all those various things that I've previously mentioned, and work with them essentially.
Designs, I guess, sort of evolves. It has fashions, I guess, in terms of sort of styles and I guess the use of design. Where technology has sort of grown considerably over the last 10 years, ever since Generate formed, really, like technology's just advanced so rapidly, so quickly, and marketing has. Where does design sort of play a role in that? Is there, do you think, in terms of design and marketing and sort of technology, how does it play?
I think it feels like, obviously marketing is most effective when it resonates with a specific target audience, and design can help you do that. So if you don't really embrace design or the opportunities it brings within marketing, then you're not making the most of that opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I mean, technology has massively opened up, and there are so many apps and things, but it's the skill of the person using those apps to be able to pull the right things out of them. Anybody can make something look pretty, but is it giving the right message? I think.
Andrea, do you think? How do you think about that?
I definitely say over the last 10 years, as you say, there's so many platforms out there that give people the tools to be able to do design, but I think it really does take a designer's eye to bring that to life. I totally agree with what Claire's saying, really, on that point.
So design is about sort of the creativity in terms of the message, and being able to showcase that message in all its glory, I guess. When it comes to sort of I guess the user experience, like we are sort of doing more and more work in that area about guiding that user through a journey. The consistency of a brand message and the design. Can we talk a little bit about that and sort of some of the work that maybe we do? Because I know you do a lot of that, Claire, and I know you do, Andrew, as well. How important is that?
I think that's one of my biggest kind of things that I bang on about all the time, and consistency is so important in a brand identity. And when I mean consistency, it's the visual consistency of how the logo appears, the colours it appears in, the fonts that are used, the imagery style, the messaging, the tone of voice, and all of those things create that consistency. If you don't use things consistently, then it starts to dilute the message, and it starts to create, customers just get a little bit uneasy. They can't necessarily, it's the subconscious, they won't necessarily know why, but it's like, oh, it's not quite the same as it sometimes is, and it just starts to chip away at the kind of the confidence that you have in a brand. So it's it's absolutely crucial.
Do you, so the art of a good designer, do you think most designers are very sort of critical and sort of very laser focused? Is that sort of a role of a designer, to be that sort of laser focused?
I think there's an element of that, but it's also you've also got to allow for the opportunity of creativity and growth within an identity. So you know, the environment changes, the target market changes, and you do need to evolve and grow a brand. And that's the skill of a designer, is being able to still grow and evolve something whilst retaining a good thread of consistency.
Yeah.
So that you're gently shifting things along and not having stark changes that chop and change all the time and feel unsettling to customers. It's that gentle evolution, really.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And as you say, it's about looking at the brand guidelines, creating something that has all the right messaging, all the right fonts, etc., all of that good stuff. But then it's about how you constantly move forward with the brand, and how you are able to grow that through various different ways. You maybe introduce something that then becomes part of their brand, which they can move through, and just brand evolution. So then you're not standing still. It's about being current and being able to meet your target audience. I just agree with that.
And what's the sort of the biggest challenge around that then? Sort of, because, you know, a brand obviously and design needs to evolve in terms of, I guess the brand needs to evolve with the company, and the design needs to evolve with the sort of the company, but also fashion as well, in terms of what's current, in terms of what people are looking at and users and how they interacting. What are the biggest challenges, or is that the challenge, the fact that everything just kind of moves forward so quickly?
I think it's always being able to going back to the core values of the business and the ambition, and whatever you're evolving and changing, it's just going back and sense checking against that core ambition and the core values. And it's when there starts to become a disconnect that it might not be working. So you can evolve and change things, but as long as you're still being authentic to the core brand values, whether that's about, you know, building a dream home or having the most delicious steak in the city, or whatever it is that it might be, it's about always looking back at that core value and making sure that you're retaining that.
We've worked with businesses for obviously since the start point, you know, back in 2008, and we've talked to many businesses, and not everybody shares the same ethos or share the same sort of vision of what design and the value of what design can bring to a business. I'll be interested in your takes on that, because you both worked with lots of different businesses over the years. Is that just a naive way of thinking from businesses, or do they have a point sometimes in terms of, does design sometimes get in the way of what they're trying to do? I don't know that, you know, because being a business owner, obviously, I don't probably look at things in the same way as how a designer would. I love our brand. I love what we've created. I love how it's evolved. And I've learned how to appreciate design far more than what I used to back in 2008 when I started Generate. As I said, we were more about technology and about building sites and about making sites be found online. That was where we started. But obviously, over the years, we've evolved. And do you think that is the same for businesses? Do you think people are more aware of what design can deliver to their business and their sort of goals, visions, and ultimately value what they bring to the business?
I think a lot of people are. I think I think things have changed, and so, you know, people are just more brand aware. You know, there's a lot more, you know, there's programs on television about people using branding and how to have a brand overall, and I think people are more aware. And I think it's, you know, my experience is that when businesses embrace design, having a really good brand, then when they see how that can affect and change and grow their business, then they really understand and value it, if they don't already. But I think it's really seeing it for yourself and how it can help evolve your business. It's not, you know, design is not just pretty wallpaper. It's actually for a business purpose. You know, design is problem solving, and it's about, you know, taking your business to the next level or to a target market. And when businesses understand that and embrace it, it's, you know, that's where the magic happens, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd also add, you know, if you take cars as an example, a car gets you from A to B. Okay, so you have for example, a KA and a McLaren, they are a car that gets you from A to B at the end of the day, but the brand that surrounds those is what sets them apart. So the brand that's created around a McLaren, you know, it's all about the drive and the feel and the look and the way it performs, and the feeling that you get when you're driving it is very different to that of a, you know, a functional car that gets you from A to B. And I think really trying to understand the true value of brand is where, as Claire says, that ultimately takes you to that next level. If you can fully understand who your business are and how you want to be perceived on the market, adding the brand to it and keeping that consistency is how you get to the next level, and how you're able to grow and evolve.
That's interesting. We did a little piece a while back. I think Lee did it about sort of bad design versus good design. So what are the common sort of common no-nos in design? What tell our viewers like some of the things that you shouldn't do, and some of the things.
How long have you got?
We've got all day. So
all day, yeah.
I think for me, one of them is default design to copycat design. And what I mean by that is using industry cliches. So just because you're an optometrist doesn't mean you have to have, you know, some glass frames as your identity. You know, it's not just defaulting to the industry standard. It's actually looking back at your brand values and thinking further, and how can you set yourself apart? Not how can you be as good as the competition, how can you be better, how can you be different, how can you shake things up, how can you be noticed? And I think definitely that sort of default copycat design is one, and I think my other is inconsistency, which we've already talked about. So I'll let Andrea get a word in edgeways.
I think there's a few things that make it up. I mean, from the back of our campaign that we were doing that Joe mentioned about what design makes all the difference, fonts, colours, all the basics. You know, if you're putting them together badly, that's bad design. But if you put them together wonderfully and amazingly, that's good design. So I think just the core principles of design and getting those right definitely is where, you know, it sets it apart. Spacing, for example, if you've got, you know, a heading and then the subheading's too near the heading, you know, it hurts my brain. We need to spread it out and give it space, so then the messaging has the area that it needs to get that point across. You know, as we say, everything has a purpose and a reason as to why something is somewhere and we're using something somewhere. So I think it's just enhancing that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about visual identity and branding. How do you sort of create an identity that then sort of resonates with an audience? What's the process that typically you would go through, Claire, and what you would go through, Andrea, to sort of get to that point of that's the design? Because that's quite, for me, that is something that I go, wow, how did they get there? How did they get to that point of saying to the client, oh, there you go, Mr. Client, there is your design.
Great magic one.
Yeah. And how do you get that? How do you create that identity around the brand and the design that resonates with an audience?
I think the most important thing for me is actually to spend time with the customer and really understand what their customer needs from them and what they need to understand. So say, for example, it's an identity for an architect. It's understanding what's different about that architect to any other architect. So, you know, are they the best sustainable architect? Are they creating dream homes for people? Are they the best at renovating listed buildings? You know, what are their clients like? Are they aspirational? Are they concerned about budget? And it's like when you really drill into understanding your customer's customer, then you can really start to put together an identity that's talking to them. You know, will the colour palette be very sophisticated and muted? Will it be very bright and primary? Will the font be very functional? Will it feel quite classic? Will it feel, you know, and it's all those really small details but put together that then create an identity that is totally talking to their target market and is going to resonate with them because you've really listened and understood what they're trying to communicate.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
I think that some of the battles that we sometimes have with our clients, in a nice way, about sort of the different opinions, because ultimately they're employing us to deliver some work, and we've got a take on it, and we'll do that research typically, and we'll look at the customer, we'll look at what they're trying to achieve, we'll look at their audience, and we'll sort of focus on that, and we'll do some research, etc., etc. But then it's then coming up often with clients. I find, well, I know we find, because this has happened recently, is we will try to push a little bit harder than what the client sometimes wants or feels that they can go to. So we'll do safe, a little bit risque, and then eventually they'll sort of go in the middle somewhere. And I think that's, I guess that is part of the process, isn't it, in terms of what a designer does, in terms of knowing not just the client and their brand, but also them as a personality themselves,
I think it's always good to stretch people, and generally we would always present a minimum of 2 concepts, ideally 3, sometimes more, where you're kind of delivering something, as you say, that kind of feels quite safe and what they feel they've asked for. But then it's kind of how far can you nudge them? Could it potentially be a little bit more contemporary? Could it be a little bit more out there? And it's kind of by exploring, then you really get to understand. Sometimes clients really go for the wild card. You come up with something, you think they're never going to go for that because it's really pushing them, and then they love it. So it's really good. It's really good to have that sort of creative exploration. Still within the boundaries of what they're trying to do, but there's kind of things that are edging towards safer and some that are edging towards a bit more disruptive.
I also find taking clients on a journey, so talking to them about, for example, if I take it from a web project point of view, showing them an analysis of their current website and then looking at how competitors do it and showing them how that's then consistent across social media, and then coming up with these concepts and putting the concepts together, and then, as you say, this is could be a safe option, but then throwing in a risk option, and then just having it all in one place, like kind of like a mood board, and then putting it all together, I think really helps to guide the customer in the direction that you kind of want them to go on. That really helps to get the message across, I think.
What do you think that is more important on that messaging? Do you think the design or the messaging is sort of more important to a business?
I think they go hand in hand. You can't put a message out there without.
Oh, that's a sit on the fence one, that, Andrea.
No, I agree. The thing is, you can have a great brand with poor messaging, and you can have poor messaging with a great, the other way around, poor brand with great messaging, and that both individually they will both get so far. But the magic is when they work together, and definitely.
Do you look at, when you're looking at a sort of an identity or a design, where do you start with looking at that sort of design do you look at sort of quick wins that you can go, okay, we could just literally move that dot there and actually that will dictate a better brand, or how do you look at quick wins, or do you not? Do you just like scrap everything and go, no, I'm going to start fresh?
I think it depends where an identity is at, because if there is an element of it that does resonate with the target audience and does feel generally sort of that it's not totally off the mark, that you could potentially evolve, then there's definitely benefit in that by not necessarily scrapping everything, because it could be they've got a huge customer base that actually really has a loyalty and an understanding of what that brand is about, and it could be that it's about evolving it. But it definitely, you would always start with quick wins, and then you would kind of push further away, and then you sort of suggest somewhere in between, or actually you might say, do you know what, your identity is really totally off the mark. We need to start with a clean slate.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Andrea?
Yeah, I do agree with that. And again, I think it's just every business is different, and you need to have an understanding of who your business are to be able to help them from a design point of view. I think that's just the basic understanding.
Gonna sort of I thought we'd try to get this sort of podcast, webcast, what we call it, in sort of a 45-minute slot, and we've got about sort of 7 minutes or so left. So I thought we'd pose one sort of quite big question. Like we've had a hell of a 18 months, haven't we? You know, in terms of businesses in particular have had really challenging times. So moving forward, what do you feel sort of businesses, the biggest challenges for businesses are moving forward when it comes to design and sort of, I guess, standing out against the competitors? What are the, that is a challenge obviously in itself, but what are the biggest challenges surrounding that?
Oh, I think there's a couple. I definitely think a big thing is just maintaining nerve. I think often when in times like this, when it's really challenging, it is really easy to kind of to draw in, to cut spend on marketing, on branding, and actually now is when you need it the most. You know, and I think also just being easily understood. I think, you know, making sure your customers understand the benefit of your brand. You know, there's so much noise out there. That's a real challenge because there's so, you know, people's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. So I think they're the sort of
simplifying the message, making it more sort of concise, etc. Andrea, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd maybe say, you know, try and find the positives in things. So, you know, okay, you know, the last year's been pretty crazy in the grand scheme of it, but if you look at it from a different point of view, you know, you could think, right, well, everyone's on the internet now, everyone's online, everyone has their mobile device on them, everyone's on their laptops and working remotely. How can we enhance that? How can we as designers reach those people? You know, looking at user behavior, you know, when are people most likely online? If I'm working with a B2C, do I need to be targeting them in the morning, in the afternoon? You know, I think it's having all of that understanding and being able to pull it all together and come up with these strategies or come up with these ideas, I think is an opportunity and something that businesses should really embrace and see the value in. I think is the ultimate goal.
I think personally on what I believe, it has been a crazy year, etc. And you talk about all the different online channels, and that is I think one of the biggest challenges for businesses now, that, and we talked about consistency earlier on, to make the message, the design very consistent across multiple channels, which becomes harder to manage and becomes quite difficult to manage, and can become sort of reasonably expensive in terms of time and energy. I think that's one of the biggest things, but also I've got to sort of say a word for print, and sort of, you know, we can't forget about print, because we got a paper, New Week News, I'll give them a plug, and we got Cass picked a paper up, and I was like, oh my god, I haven't actually read a paper for however long, and I actually really enjoyed just sitting down and actually reading the paper, which I forgot what it was like really, instead of being in front of a screen all day. I probably shouldn't say that because I'm a digital marketing agency, but you know, I've got to make a plug for design for print, because it isn't dead yet, is it?
No, I think it's how things work together. And actually, for some businesses, actually, you know, a digital campaign combined with, you know, something dropping through your door or seeing something in print is incredibly powerful when they meet together. So definitely print's not dead. And I think people are definitely appreciating physical, tactile things. You know, I do a lot of packaging design, and a lot of what we're looking at is kind of, you know, people want to touch things, pick things up. You know, it's people, yes, it's fantastic through screen, but that combination is really powerful.
I've always been a massive fan of trying to like design for the senses. So, you know, you can see it, you can feel it, can you taste it? Can you, you know, all of these different senses and how you can enlighten them. And I think that overall adds to the user experience. If you can enhance all of them all together, I think again that's where the magic lies. So as you say, if you've got a digital campaign online and then you receive something through the post that's then consistent, looks the same, and you're feeling it, there's something in that the two just work, and
One thing I have noted just during this conversation, I think a designer's got to be a real rounder to a degree, you know, packaging design, online, web, and you know, because there's just so much out there, and I think you know, what I'll say, a good designer must be really open to all of them and have some good knowledge in all of those multiple disciplines within what design, where design can be used.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, it's very much about, you know, it's having that overall strategy and thinking about what that particular design is trying to do, and then whether that's applied to a website, a piece of packaging, a piece of print. A lot of the design principles will be the same, but yes, there are different skill sets for each of them, but it's having that thinking to begin with about what you're actually trying to do with that piece of design that's crucial.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna finish it with one more question. Is, if you were a business and you had a bit of a sort of your brand's been sort of, and your design has been a bit staid for the last sort of 5 years, what would be the sort of number one bit of advice you would give them? Because maybe they've got, you know, haven't got a massive budget, but they're sort of on the fence a little bit, sort of thinking about whether or not they invest in that new brand, a new design. What's the bit of advice you'd give them?
Oh, I think first of all, to do a bit of a stock take of what they've got, is get all of their printed materials out, you know, anything online, get it printed out, get it all out. Is it consistent? Is there consistency there?
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing to do would be to do a little bit of market research, and I don't mean expensive market research. I mean asking valued friends, customers, family, what they understand your business is about, and actually seeing, is there a disconnect between, you know, your little stock take you've done and, you know, what you think the business is about, and then kind of, I think also writing down your business ambition. What is the plan for the bit? What's the business plan? What are you trying to do? And then looking at your identity and thinking, is that going to get me there?
Yeah.
Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but that will give you a really good sense of, you know, is it worth investing a chunk of money to take me to that end goal?
Yes, good advice. Andrea, any advice that you'd provide on top of that?
No, probably not. I think that's a really good exercise, just doing a brand audit and looking at, you know, online, are you being consistent? Offline, are you being inconsistent? And then finding out, you know, from your customers if what they're saying is actually the message you're wanting to put out. I think is definitely a good place to start. And then if there are, you know, disconnects, as you say, Claire, then get in touch with a full service digital marketing agency. Oh, I know. And we can help. But yeah, no, definitely getting a designer involved. You know, I feel like over this 45 minutes we've shown, you know, how understanding your business and how to take it to the next level, and the value of that, it can be huge.
Yeah.
Well, look, 45 minutes, well, just over actually, so which is great. It's been really insightful, and thank you so much, Claire, for your time. Thank you for yours, Andrea, as well. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch, we'll put Claire's email and also Andrea's email with this podcast and online, so they can get in contact with you. And if you want more advice around design, then feel free to contact us. But on that note, have a fantastic day, and thank you again.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.